Hi, this is Amber Pawula-Marcin, and I want to tell you today about nutrition education for the expecting teen. All right, so this slide is just a quick overview of all the different things we're going to be talking about today. And so I'm going to go ahead and just advance to the next slide. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the basis for this program. Now, we know that pregnancy is a time when it's easier for people to make changes. The research shows this. It's why Target goes after pregnant women to try to get them to shop more at their store. And in the case of nutrition, pregnant women know that nutrition is helpful for pregnancy. They know that they want to have healthy babies, and their doctors usually make it clear to them that nutrition is a helpful thing to improve. But most women really don't get a whole lot of guidance on how they can improve their nutrition. We also know that there are a lot of different complications that can occur during pregnancy that can adversely affect both mother and baby. And one of the few things that we really do have some control over is that pregnancy nutrition is a modifiable risk factor, and that can improve our overall community health. And so we are basing this program on the integrated behavioral model. In case you're not familiar with that, there are a variety of different factors that can go ahead and influence how likely a person is to actually carry out their intention of making a health behavior change and translating that into actual behavior. So, in the case of pregnant women, we already have a very strong impetus to make those health behavior changes. What pregnant women a lot of times don't have are the skills to implement those changes in terms of both knowledge of better nutrition choices, implementing those choices, knowing how to get resources, and improving their overall skills. So, if we can do that, if we can help women with that, we can go ahead and improve their self efficacy and hopefully improve their ability to actually carry out those intentions of improving their health and their nutrition status and provide better outcomes by getting them to actually perform that health behavior. All right, so our target audience is going to be pregnant adolescents between the ages of 13 and 19 in the city of Peoria, Illinois. Now, why do we need this program? Well, we know that teenagers are still developing. So they have higher nutritional needs just on their own. And when you add pregnancy to the mix, they really have a much higher chance of not getting the nutrients that they need for their own developing bodies or their babies. And with those risks come higher incidences of adverse outcomes, like, for instance, preeclampsia and eclampsia, which can be life-threatening. We also know that infants born to adolescents tend to have higher rates of preterm birth, of low birth weights, and even higher rates of infant mortality. And so we also know that nutrition is a modifiable risk factor. And we also know that here in Peoria, while the national teenage pregnancy rate has been dropping to 10% in the last few years, our pregnancy rate has stood at 13%. So we have an underserved population of at-risk mothers and children who really would benefit from intervention, and this will benefit our entire community because in terms of the long-term health outcomes, in terms of the medical costs and the social services costs to our community, this is definitely a pressing concern for our community in terms of public health. So, what are our goals with this program? Now, our immediate goals would be just to reduce the incidence of maternal and infant complications in the adolescent population. That would go a long way towards improving our overall community health. We also would really like to see long-term outcomes from this program include increasing the health status of these pregnant teenagers as they grow into adult women, and increasing the long-term health status of their children, in terms of having better nutrition for them down the line for years to come. Now, we do have some significant challenges in terms of implementing this program. For one thing, there is a large proportion of our pregnant teens that live below the poverty line, and so it's going to be more difficult to implement some kind of nutrition program when they may not have good access to resources like healthy food. So, one thing that we would definitely need to do is identify all of our local resources like the WIC program, for instance, is an obvious one, but all the different community resources that we have to help pregnant teens get access to good nutrition. We also are going to need to do targeted outreach to our various minority communities that are disproportionately affected in terms of teenage pregnancy rates. They're just higher. And so we'll need to work hard to understand the food dynamics for those different population groups so that we can really give these girls targeted strategies to eating healthy within what they have available to them and what their family food patterns are. Now, for best coverage of our program, what we really are going to need to do is to partner with a number of different areas in Peoria. So we'll need to get the high schools on board. We would need to work with the Peoria City County Health Department and also with our hospitals. We have 2 hospitals that have maternity departments here in Peoria, and if we can work with them to help spread awareness about our program, we can really get some blanket access to referrals for this program, because obviously not every woman is going to be interested in participating, but for those that are, we want to make sure that they know that it's here so that we can help them take advantage of it. And then finally, we're going to need to secure some funding, of course, and so we're going to look into federal, state, and private grants for some of that funding, and then also support from the local community, because obviously it's in our best interest. All right, so let's just talk briefly about what the program is going to look like. So the program nutritionist, which would be me, will have office hours at each of the 3 area high schools 1 day a week, and that way girls who are attending school have the option of just easily being able to access the program. And then we can also have office hours at another neutral location for adolescents that are not in school for whatever reason. That way we can really get good coverage of all the different girls and make sure that they have the most access to the program. Now, when the students meet with me, what we would do is basically there would be a nutritional education portion of the program on our first meeting, and I would also work with each girl to individually assess what challenges she might be facing, and that way when we meet for the second time, we'll be able to provide a personalized nutrition program that the girl will help design herself so that she has some investment in meeting these goals because she's helped come up with them, and they'll also allow her to create a program that's realistic for her situation. Then the student is going to meet with the nutrition counselor for follow-ups every 1 to 2 months. It'll probably be on a case-by-case basis there as to how often we need to do follow-ups. And then we'll be able to assess adherence to the program, and if she's having a hard time following it for whatever reason, we'll be able to do changes to the program. This also would be an ideal time to discuss nutrition going forward into the future, particularly infant and early childhood feeding and also postpartum nutrition for her so that she can get her body back to full capacity. And then the last thing that we'd really like to do is because a lot of these girls really have very little education in just how to prepare healthy food, we would try to have a rotating cooking class at different community locations every 1 to 2 months, depending on interest, and help these women gain the basic skills that they'll be able to use for the rest of their lives to help feed themselves and their children. All right, so some of the main things that we'll be talking about in terms of just the basic nutrition information is teenagers tend to not really respond well to being given some sort of list of nutrients they need to intake or whatnot. A big focus for teens is just helping them focus on what are whole foods, healthy foods. These are the things that are good for them to eat, helping them understand what are healthy portion sizes. There is definitely teens are at higher risk for either eating too much or eating too few calories and for missing out on nutrient dense foods because there is such a strong influence of junk food and soda and things like that. So, just helping them understand how to make the most of nutrient dense foods and get their body as much nutrition as possible is one of the main goals of the nutrition education program. Another thing that we have to focus on in the nutrition education portion is that teenagers are busy, they have a lot of activities, they spend a lot of time with their friends, and there's a lot of times that they're not going to be just sitting down at a table for 3 square meals a day. They have to contend with cafeteria food and other food lunch programs. And so, helping them understand how to make the best possible choices while they're out and about, how to choose healthier snacks, and just in general keep getting those nutrient dense foods in their body while still accounting for the fact that they are teenagers is going to be a really important focus of getting them to change their eating behaviors in healthy ways. And then we are going to work on the practical skills of using basic kitchen tools and very basic cooking preparation techniques. And we're also going to help educate them on foods that are inexpensive and nutrient dense because since so many of our students are going to be underprivileged and living in poverty conditions, they're definitely going to need to understand how to get healthy food that is within their pocketbook. So, how we would like to evaluate the success of our program is that we would get all of the program's participants to agree to release the birth statistics that'll be relevant to our program so we can track things like maternal weight gain and infant birth weights, gestational ages, any complications that would be relevant to nutrition and ultimately the birth outcomes. So the way that we would also like to assess the program is we would want to get feedback from the people who've been through it. So we would be following up with a questionnaire and possibly a in-person or phone call follow-up just to try to get some feedback on their perception of how our program helped them and also to see how we might need to change our approach for any cultural groups that are not being successfully helped by the program.